Israeli forces burned Kamal Adwan Hospital, evacuating patients and staff violently, sparking condemnation. Houthis claim hypersonic strikes on Tel Aviv and Socotra ship, sparking regional tensions. And Israel's Netanyahu vows continued strikes on Houthis after airstrikes that killed 2 and injured 11. It's 4 p.m. Cairo local time, and you're now watching Qnews. And we begin today's bulletin with the latest developments in Gaza. At least 12 Palestinians were killed in Israeli airstrikes across Gaza since dawn today. Palestinian media reported 10 fatalities and 30 injuries in attacks on Gaza City. In another strike targeting a house in Gaza's Shuja'iyya neighborhood, additional civilians were killed. A drone strike in Jabalia also left multiple casualties and injuries in northern Gaza. Israeli occupation forces have set fire to the Kamal Adwan Hospital in Beit Lahia, northern Gaza. The hospital, the largest in the region, served over 400,000 people. Reports indicated that Israeli soldiers forcibly evacuated the injured medical personnel and journalists from the facility while firing shells and bullets at it. Furthermore, Israeli forces reportedly stripped the medical staff, patients, and companions of their clothes and escorted them to an undisclosed location. This action has sparked widespread condemnation as yet another attack on critical civilian infrastructure amid the ongoing conflict in Gaza. Communication with the medical teams, patients, and journalists at Kamal Adwan Hospital in Beit Lahia, northern Gaza, has been completely severed. Palestinian media reports have stated that Israeli occupation forces raided the hospital, forcing patients and the injured into its courtyard and conducting searches. The Palestinian Ministry of Health has called on the international community to intervene and protect patients, medical teams, and treatment centers in Palestine, particularly in Gaza, as the Israeli occupation continues its brutal campaign. This plea follows the Israeli forces storming of Kamal Adwan Hospital in Beit Lahia, northern Gaza. The ministry emphasized that the ongoing crimes are largely a result of the international community's silence, allowing ethnic cleansing and massacres to continue unabated. Meanwhile, the Palestinian presidency condemned the Israeli occupation's heinous act of setting fire to Kamal Adwan Hospital in Beit Lahia, which serves over 400,000 patients. The presidency described the attack on Palestinian hospitals as a grave violation of international law and agreements that protect medical facilities and personnel during armed conflict. It urged the international health organizations to uphold their responsibilities and take action to stop these crimes, ensuring protection for medical teams and the injured. A New York Times investigation has revealed Israel comprised civilian protection protocols during its ongoing war in Gaza. The report highlights flawed targeting methods and inadequate assessments of civilian risk based on interviews with over 100 Israeli soldiers and officials, as well as testimonies from Gaza residents and legal experts. Israeli occupation forces have clashed with Palestinians during raids on Askar's old and new refugee camps in Nablus. The Palestinian Red Crescent reported one person injured by gunfire during the incursion. Israeli troops also set fire to a civilian vehicle and caused significant damage to infrastructure. The Palestinian Ministry of Health has reported that Israeli forces have carried out 3 massacres against families in Gaza, resulting in the death of 37 Palestinians with the last 24 hours and leaving 98 others injured. The ongoing Israeli assault on Gaza has raised the death toll to more than 45,400 martyrs since October of last year, with over 108,000 injured. Moving on to the escalating tensions in Yemen, the Houthis have claimed responsibility for 3 military operations, including a hypersonic missile strike on Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv and another one in the city. It is also reported targeting a ship near Socotra, citing its violation of restrictions on Israeli-linked port access. UN humanitarian air service employee has sustained severe injuries in an Israeli airstrike on a Yemeni airport. According to a World Health Organization spokesperson, the injured staff member is receiving treatment at a local hospital. The Israeli strikes have hit multiple targets reportedly linked to the Houthi movement in Yemen, including Sana'a International Airport. Yemen's authorities have confirmed that flights resumed in Sana'a International Airport just 1 day after it was targeted by Israeli airstrikes. A Yemeni Airways flight was seen taking off, with several other planes also on the tarmac, despite shattered glass and debris visible throughout the airport. The strikes resulted in 4 fatalities and nearly 20 injuries, including airport workers and travelers, according to Yemen's Deputy Minister of Transport and head of the Civil Aviation and Meteorology Authority, Yahya As-Sayani. Sirens were heard in the Tel Aviv area early on Friday morning following the launch of a missile from Yemen, according to the Israeli military. The alarm was activated around 3:30 a.m. local time in multiple locations across the Tel Aviv area. Shortly after, the Israeli military reported that the missile had been intercepted. This incident occurred hours after Israel struck multiple targets linked to the Houthi movement on Thursday, December the 26th. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has stated that Israel will continue its military campaign against the Houthi in Yemen, declaring that Israel is determined to sever Iran's arms in the region. According to Al Musayyara TV, Houthis' main news outlet, the airstrikes killed 2 people at the airport, 1 at the ports, and wounded 11 others. The Houthis have not yet condemned on the attacks or rather commented on the attacks, although they have previously launched drones and missiles towards Israel in what they describe as acts of solidarity with Palestinians in Gaza. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has condemned the escalation of conflict between Yemen's Houthis and Israel, following Israeli airstrikes that killed at least 6 people, injuring dozens, and targeting critical civilian infrastructure, including Sana'a International Airport. Israeli warplanes struck Houthi-controlled infrastructure at Sana'a International Airport, as well as power stations in Hizyaz and Ras Kantib, and ports of Hudaydah, Salif, and Ras Kantib, according to a military statement. Stephanie Tremblay, associate spokesperson for Guterres, expressed alarm, stating that the Secretary General condemns the escalation between Yemen and Israel. And for more analysis, we now move to Salma in our newsroom. To you, Salma.
Thank you, Hela. And for further analysis on the escalating tensions in Yemen and the recent Israeli airstrike, we're joined from Cairo by the expert at Al Ahram Center for Political and Strategic Studies, Dr. Muhammad Azil Arab. Welcome to Qnews, Doctor. And first off, how do you assess the impact of the recent Israeli airstrikes on Yemen's civilian infrastructure, particularly the Sana'a International Airport?
Steve, the attacks that are undertaken by Israel targeting certain specific targets inside Yemen, this is aimed to achieve a number of objectives. The first one is about the continuation of eliminating the loss of the axis of Iranian threat to Israel according to an Israeli perspective, because Israel believes that it is waging a war against seven main fronts, one of which is the Houthi front. And at the time where there has been weakening of the defense and military capabilities of Hezbollah and Hamas and the other Shiite militias in Syria and Iraq and Iran, there is only the Yemeni militia, the Houthi militia in Yemen, as the target for Israel. Secondly, despite the attacks that Israel launched for 4 times so far, and the attacks that were waged by the US and Britain, these attacks did not deter the Houthis. And therefore, there is a diversification of the types and modes of attacks by Israel, attacking the Sana'a airport and the Hudaydah port, as well as some points of weaponry, and attacking also the energy and electricity. This all is trying to imply different losses on the Houthis. Still, all these attacks did not deter the Houthis. Thirdly, and there is a talk by the Prime Minister of Israel and the Defense Minister of Israel and the Chief of Staff, they are saying that there will be more of deterrence of the Houthis till the end of the mission. This means that this battle is still at the beginning for Israel.
Now, Doctor, reference to Israel waging war against several fronts, and now it's shifting its focus towards the Yemen. What are the potential consequences of escalating tensions between the Houthis and Israel on regional security?
There is an escalation, as I said, between Israel and the Houthis, and it will be continuing in the future as part of the repercussions of the war on Gaza, especially that the Houthis are making immediate responses to the attacks by Israel. Today, Friday, it was announced that the Israeli Ben Gurion airport was attacked by a ballistic missile. Also, they announced that they have attacked a vital site in Tel Aviv, and it was attacked by a drone. More importantly, there is a move from the Houthi side on the level of disrupting the naval navigation globally, because Houthis made a statement today saying that they have hit a ship that was going to Israel by some drones. And the Houthis said that this Santa Roshana has been targeted in the Sea of Arab near Socotra Island. So it's clear that there are different paths for the response by the Houthis.
Now, Doctor, in light of these massive developments you've mentioned from both sides that are targeting significant infrastructure, in light of this, how effective has the international community been in addressing the humanitarian crisis in Yemen amidst these military actions?
Not moving with real actions that would lead to a ceasefire or call for getting to a period of cooling in Gaza, especially that Houthis are linking their war against Israel with the war in Gaza. Moreover, the international community did not move to pressure the Israeli occupation forces or pressure the Houthis to allow the entry of humanitarian aid and medical and food stuff to alleviate the humanitarian crisis faced by the Yemeni community in different areas. Especially, as I said, the Israeli army has attacked some sites for the Houthis on the west coast of Yemen, and in the depth of Yemen, Israel attacked the infrastructure in Sana'a airport and other places.
Now, Dr. Mohammed, sorry for interrupting you, but due to Israeli media, establishing a bank of goals on the Yemeni front will improve if Israel got support from its allies. How do you interpret the statement?
By Israel to show as if there are Arab parties and also international parties that are supportive of the Israeli attacks and the Israeli actions. But I wish to emphasize that these operations did not get any endorsement from any Arab party. Israel is trying to claim that some countries like Saudi Arabia, Emirates, and maybe Egypt are endorsing this. But these parties are totally contrary to these attacks by Israel. This is not to support the Houthis, but to save the Yemeni people from the repercussions and the damage. And what Israel is doing is an escalation that is not serving the regional stability that is supported by all the actions of key players in the region like Egypt. Thirdly, there is a support to Israel, but not the Arab support. It's support from international parties especially, and specifically US and Britain, helping the continuation of the Israeli attacks on the Houthis, even in an intermittent manner.
That was the expert at Al Ahram Center for Political and Strategic Studies, Dr. Mohammed Aziz Al Arab. Thank you so much for your insights. Now we're going to move back to Hala in the studio.
Thank you so much, Salma. And now we move to the latest developments in Syria. Syria's military has announced that there was an arrest of several militants in Tartus province during ongoing security operations. Earlier, Syrian forces conducted a broad crackdown targeting armed groups in western Hama's rural areas. Iraqi Prime Minister Mohammad Shia al-Sudani has emphasized Iraq's commitment to a comprehensive political process in Syria. He warned that instability in Syria, in Syrian prisons, could fuel terrorism in Iraq, reiterating Baghdad's call for enhanced border coordination with Damascus. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has stated that the Syrian people alone will decide their country's future, free from foreign intervention. He underscored Tehran's respect for Syria's territorial integrity and national sovereignty. Moving on to Lebanon, Israeli occupation forces have launched 3 airstrikes on Lebanon's Qusaya region in the Beqa Valley and another near Ait al-Shab in the south. Lebanon's military accused Israel of violating the ceasefire agreement and infiltrating border areas, including Al-Qantara and Wadi al-Hujir. Lebanese caretaker Prime Minister Najib Mikati said that Beirut has received no assurances that Israel will withdraw from southern Lebanon following the 60-day ceasefire. He called on the U.S. and France to pressure Israel to retreat from areas it continues to occupy. And now we move to the latest developments of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said that Russia has faced targeted isolation from Western nations, with calls for countries to sever trade and diplomatic ties. Speaking at an online press briefing in Moscow, Lavrov accused the West of using threats, sanctions, and punitive measures to pressure other nations into aligning against Moscow. Responding to a question from China media group, Lavrov said that the West's actions force countries to act against their own interests, including paying higher energy prices under the pretext of punishing Russia. Russia has announced gains in Donetsk and continued strikes on Ukrainian positions, while Ukraine claimed to have repelled multiple attacks and held its defensive lines. The Russian Ministry of Defense reported capturing a settlement in the Donetsk region, with ongoing offensives targeting Ukrainian military airports, ammunition depots, and drone command centers. Officials said air defense systems intercepted 56 Ukrainian drones over the past day. Meanwhile, Ukraine's general staff stated that its forces engaged in 114 battles along the front lines on Thursday, taking all the necessary measures to counter Russian advances and maintain their positions. Russian President Vladimir Putin has expressed openness to Slovakia's proposal to host peace talks aimed at ending the conflict in Ukraine. Putin has further reiterated Russia's determination to bring the conflict to a conclusion. The remarks followed a meeting in the Kremlin earlier this week with Slovenian Prime Minister Robert Fico, who has been a vocal critic of European Union support for Ukraine. According to Putin, Fico offered Slovakia initial negotiations between Russia and Ukraine. And that brings us to the end of our news bulletin. Here is what we have been covering. Israeli forces burned Kamal Adwan Hospital, evacuating patients and staff violently, sparking condemnation. Houthis claim hypersonic strikes on Tel Aviv and Socotra ship, sparking regional tensions. And Israel's Netanyahu vows continued strikes on Houthis after airstrikes that killed 2 and injured 11. And this concludes our news bulletin for this hour. Don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at Qnews EG to stay informed. Thank you so much for watching and stay tuned for more updates here on Q News.